Hello, and welcome back to the next episode of Foundation Feed. My name is Claire Headley. I'm your host for today. I'm the volunteer board president of the Michael J. Render Aftermath Foundation, joined by none other than Phil Jones, executive director. Welcome, Phil.
Thank you, Claire. It's nice to be here again.
Yes, absolutely, indeed. We've been covering so much ground in this series. It's really encouraging, and we're making progress step by step, right?
We're covering it, and it's nice to get all this out there. And we've got some really good stuff coming up as well, which I'm really excited about.
Yes, definitely. Well, for today, we will be doing something different. We thought we would do maybe an episode or two, or maybe 3 or 4, depending on where it leads and how much we find that we're able to cover, just to talk about Scientology myths versus the facts. I think it's fair to say we run into these almost with every single person that we help through the foundation. Would you agree with that, Phil?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Scientology, just one big, sorry for the bad pun, a hit and myth.
Hit and myth. That's a good one. I like that.
But I mean, right from day one, when Hubbard wrote Dianetics, Modern Science and Mental Health, he made promises in that book for perfect memory, perfect health, perfect eyesight, perfect computation ability. And I was in Scientology for almost 40 years, and not once did I ever see a single person that had even a portion of that ability. The myth is, and that is constantly promoted as they call it book one because it's the basis of of Scientology, and it's just a big myth. It's the book is fiction.
Yep.
It just doesn't do anything, and so I kind of like that underlies everything. And even if you said to a Scientologist, well, why don't people get those abilities? And if they say something like, well, you'd get that later on, future things. But right there, when you study Scientology, there's a policy that you study before every single course that you do called technical degrades. You cannot say it's no longer used or no longer valid, because that you could be declared suppressive just for doing that. Yep. So it's kind of a catch-22 for Scientologists, because it doesn't work, but you can't say it doesn't work because you'll get declared if you even hint at that. So anyway, that to me, that was the first thing that popped in my head when I started thinking about Scientology myths, is the underlying book that Hubbard wrote, which started it all.
Yes, completely. And it's funny, you bring to mind a question, and I'm curious to hear what your answer to this is. So when you were in Scientology, if someone had asked you, what's your stance on mental health as a Scientologist, what would your response have been?
Well, if they were referring to like psychology or psychiatry, when you're in Scientology, and I had the same viewpoint, is like, no, sorry, that is just not done. They have no idea what they're doing. Scientology is the only road to mental health. Dianetics, Modern Science and Mental Health, that there was just all this conflicting stuff. I mean, we believed it, never saw it work, but still believed it the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah, I would have, my response to that would have been, no, mental health is different than Scientology, even though it's in the title of Dianetics.
No, that's a good point, actually, because he kind of got away from the whole mental health aspect after Dianetics. You're right. It became, well, the answers probably would lean more to, we're more into spiritual help, spiritual enlightenment. We deal with the soul and the spirit.
Yeah.
And that's probably, you're right.
The whole applied philosophy approach, which, because there's not really, other than mental health in the title of Dianetics, mental health is not referenced in many other places.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. because he leaned into the spiritual aspect. But again, that leads to another myth, the operating thetan myth. It's like
Yes.
an operating thetan. The definition of operating thetan is someone who can operate without using the body. But in all the time I was in Scientology, no OT, no operating thetan, who had done any of the OT levels could ever do anything outside their body without, they couldn't move a paperclip across the table.
Right.
None of them could. Not a
Yeah, and
single thing.
of course, Thetan is probably one of the more fundamental language pieces of Scientology
Yeah,
in that as an exchange for soul or being
right.
or
Yeah,
spiritual being or whatever terminology. But yeah, it's also so isolating the level and degree of language that is
right.
used within Scientology.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
All right. So we're going to run through myths versus facts for Scientology. And Phil, you and I can just share our different takes on each of these.
Yeah.
I think that will just make it simple and straightforward. So the first one we have here, myth. Scientology is the only path to spiritual freedom.
Well, I mean, you see that in any religion pretty much, that
True.
they're the only one I've ever run across that says all paths lead to God is the Hindus. But typically a religion or even a sect within a religion is going to say theirs is the only one.
Right.
But Scientology is the only one. No, that's what they believe.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
believe strongly that's that everyone else is. In fact, in Scientology, they believe a lot of the religion, all the other religions, especially with Christianity, as Hubbard basically said, that it's all created by an implant from, it's mentally implanted into the soul by evil psychiatrists in the universe. I mean, it's a big science
Yeah.
fiction thing, but that's what they believe.
Yeah, for sure. No, Hubbard. There's an advice which is therefore not broadly available to Scientologists, in which Hubbard said, "Religion is a control mechanism to leverage and control people," which begs the question: if that's really true, then isn't that the same for Scientology? Then, of course, it is. We know that, but
Yeah.
if that's what he believed, then he therefore created something to further that control mechanism. And if anything, I've heard we've had friends who've done who were in college and did studies on Scientology, and it's, I think, well documented that Scientology's level and tactics far exceed many
Yeah.
other cult organizations in terms of just the entire structure, which, I always took that my takeaway from that was that Hubbard intended it that way and actually studied different organizations and approaches so as to harvest the most effective ways to control members.
Oh, exactly. And before he developed Scientology, or before Dianetics, he studied and practiced hypnotism. And a
Yes.
lot of what is in his works, including Dianetics, has a lot to do with hypnotism. And that's where a lot of the control comes from as well.
Yes.
So the control mechanisms in Scientology they are probably, I mean, I've never been in any other religion, not deeply anyway. I mean,
No, me
uh,
neither.
so, I mean, I looked at a few. I mean, I went to India and I looked at Hinduism a little bit, but just out of interest, not out of wanting to be in the religion or anything.
Oh, for sure.
Um,
Yeah, no, I've gone to church a few times since leaving Scientology, but more for like, oh, my son's friend is inviting him, so I,
yeah,
want to,
see what it's about. Yeah,
I'm not going to let my kids be involved in something if I don't know what it's about, and to make sure that they're safe and all that as priority. But there was a time that Jehovah's Witnesses came to our door one time when we were living in California, and It was, kind of early in the morning. I was home alone by myself with my kids. I was already on edge because Mark was at a conference in Germany exposing Scientology, which is always when private investigators would show up at my door or weird things would happen. Anyway, so these Jehovah's Witnesses show up at the door. Hadn't had my coffee yet. And I was just like, I was born into a cult and I just escaped. And no. And they just literally looked at me and turned around and walked away. They didn't even say anything.
Wow.
Anyway. All right. So back to our slides here. Facts.
Yeah.
This exclusivity is a classic control mechanism. And of course, these are just summaries. We're just covering the broad talking points. There's way more depth to this. But what we have here, people across countless traditions, Christianity, Buddhism, Judaism, Hinduism, etc., live rich and spiritually fulfilling lives. The claim of being the only way is common among authoritarian groups because it makes leaving unthinkable. People can and do thrive outside of Scientology's rigid structure.
And and that's a good point right there too. Is that whole authoritarian group thing where leaving is unthinkable. I think there was the one billboard that we had put up with Mike Rinder's image, where the difference between a cult and a religion is what happens when you try to leave. And Scientology, it's not easy to leave Scientology.
No.
You can sometimes slink away quietly if you don't say anything, but even that is difficult, and they often will chase after you even then. But it's difficult to leave. And with other religions, it's not a big deal. You come and you go, and hey, do you want to join our church? No, not really. Okay, have a good life. And that'd be it.
Yeah. And I think it's fair to say that that aspect that you're talking about is another common one that comes up with almost everybody that reaches out to the foundation, that they're scared of the continuing efforts to get them and bring them back. And I think also too that it's pretty common from what we've seen that when someone decides they want nothing more to do with Scientology, it might take them, they might reach out right away, but more commonly, it'll be in the first few months or even a year after leaving that they'll start to wake up and realize that they need help, and that the Aftermath Foundation is here to help.
Yes, true. And it's often very difficult or impossible for them even then, at that point, even though they reach out for help, to speak out, just knowing the retribution that Scientology can. So, I mean, not only does Scientology sort of promote the idea that they're the only path to spiritual freedom, they almost want to make you believe that. Like, there's a force to it more so than other religions. So it's like that's the myth is kind of an enforced myth in Scientology.
Yep. And I think it's also a double-edged sword in that you're right. Not only is it the only way, but also if it's not for you, the only reason for that is because there's something wrong with you.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like the spider in the web phenomena, or the fly in the web, I should say.
And that's part of the programming. They program you so that after a while, they don't even need to say it. You think in your mind, "Oh, I want to get out of this. Wait, I must have criminal acts or harmful acts, things I've done wrong, whatever, or maybe I'm connected to somebody who's critical." You start to internalize it, and it's like, and then you go, and then you push the thought away. Well, it better not leave.
Right. Yeah, it becomes very, very complicated very quickly.
Yeah.
All right. We ready for the next one? I think we've covered this one pretty well, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Leaving Scientology means you'll fail in life. This follows on from exactly what we were just talking about. That is 100% a myth. And it's sad that, again, I would say there are probably many people that think that are current members of the Sea organization that are staying just because they believe this.
Yeah. And the thing is too, is that the way they frame it is almost always financial. Not always, but I mean, there's other things. Oh, you're going to fall into drugs, or you do this or that. But often it's like, oh, you'll fail and you'll end up flipping hamburgers or something like that. Not that there's anything wrong with flipping hamburgers.
Nope.
If you're working, you're working. But the
Exactly.
thing is that they'll frame it in that you're going to fall flat on your face, you'll be homeless or on drugs or some other horrible thing. And even I know when our kids were young, the idea of putting them in a public school as opposed to a Scientology-based school, it was a similar thing. That if you put them in a public school, leaving a Scientology-based organization, they'll fail. They'll
Yep.
be on drugs. There'll be uh, psychiatric harm done to them somehow or other, and um, in fact, we were so conditioned when our kids were really young, and we were putting them into school. And I thought, well, let's go and interview the I think it was the vice principal we talked to, and we were sitting there talking to the vice principal, and he said, I can't remember how exactly he worded it, but he was uh, an experienced or trained psychologist.
Mm.
And as a Scientologist, that freaked us out. We took the kids out of school, put them in another school
Oh my
just
gosh.
because of that.
Yep.
Just because of that. So it was that's kind of the fear that Scientology put, that, oh, if you put them in that situation that they're going to fail.
Yep.
And leaving Scientology, it's just promoted that way, that you leave, you're going to either be on drugs, you're going to fail, you're going to go broke, you're going to just whatever. And that's kind of run on you
Yes.
throughout.
Yep, absolutely. So, facts, this fear script is planted so deeply that many members dread even imagining life outside. Thousands of ex members have rebuilt successful careers and families. Some became authors, artists, business owners, or advocates for others. Life often begins after leaving, when people regain control of their choices, finances, and relationships.
And relationships, and not just a family, but friends. I mean, when we were in Scientology, the friends that we had dropped us like a stone as soon as we made one little mistake.
Yes,
We've got more friends now outside of Scientology that we ever had in Scientology, and
completely.
they're real friends. They'll stand by you. Just it's a whole different relationship with friends outside Scientology. It's definitely better outside Scientology, because then it's a lot more real. Scientology, when you're in Scientology, the friends and relationships you have are second to Scientology. Scientology will come first in their
Yes.
mind. So whatever
Yes.
happens, you're out if you're, second is last.
Yes,
So,
no, completely, and that's where I think that finding that community, that support,
yeah,
those relationships is such an important part of the road to recovery, and the, therapeutic value of working through that. And, for example, our online support group program run by Rachel
yeah,
Bernstein, that's where that is just so, so important for, to kind of relearn how actual relationships work as one of the foundations of building a successful life.
yeah, definitely, definitely. It's very popular too, which is really nice to see, because she's
Yes.
good. I mean, she's been around for years. She knows Scientology. She's never been in it, but we knew her way back in when we were doing the Call Me billboards back in 2016 in LA. So
Yes.
she's kind of been in the mix there, and knows it, and she's very well qualified to run that.
Completely. No, I've interviewed her on the Blown for Good channel, because funnily enough, she's the first therapist I ever talked to way back in 2009 when I was in California during our lawsuit, because I was quite frankly falling apart at the seams from being in grueling deposition with Scientology's
Oh,
attorneys. And she was just incredibly helpful.
good. Yeah.
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 Yep. She
He's
made
very
it
good.
safe.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see here. Anything else you wanted to add on this one, Phil?
No, I think we covered that.
Perfect. All right. Doubt is a sign of weakness or enemy influence. This is a huge myth in Scientology, just huge.
Yeah. Um, I mean, there's even a formula that Hubbard wrote called the doubt formula. Like he considers that in life you've got all these different conditions of life where normal and and affluence and power, and then below that you've got emergency and danger and doubt. And doubt is it is definitely, it's a lower condition. It's considered that if you're in a in fact, I think that even when you're in doubt condition and when you're on staff, you were on staff more than me. I was only on for a very, very short time. Um, but do they kind of take you off post at that time, or do you still have to work? What?
No, most of the time, at least where I was, they would, yeah, you wouldn't be allowed to work if you
Yeah,
were in doubt and not getting through it. If you were getting through it, that's fine. But you're right.
yeah,
There's even a policy called hang up at doubt, which means that if you don't immediately decide that you're, an enthusiastic, all in member
yeah.
of the group that's saving the planet, then that's where you get moved off to the side as a flat ball bearing, and most often put on heavy manual labor and
Yeah.
interrogations until that's resolved with false data stripping and other tools can be applied to get you through the doubt formula.
So not only a sign of weakness, but an excuse for punishment then
Yes.
too.
Yes.
And that's one thing with Scientology, is that if you are considered um, below normal, then they start adding on the punishments. And the
Exactly.
lower condition you go, then the more punishment there is.
Yes.
So, and as far as the enemy influence, what they're talking about there is that if somebody that is criticizing Scientology, um, and usually it's criticizing Scientology, not even criticizing you, just putting uh, ideas in your mind that Scientology may not be the only way, the only
Right.
way, like
I
the
mean,
only
or
person.
let's talk about an example. Even if, let's say, Mark, when we're working at the headquarters, says David Miscavige almost punched me. That would be considered an enemy action, even just to say that out loud, because
Yeah,
it's black propaganda is the word that they use for it, right? Black PR.
yeah,
Um,
or an enemy line.
Yes, an enemy line, exactly, and
Yeah,
it's a criticism, even if it's a
yeah,
statement of fact, is
right.
irrelevant.
My sister's OT8, and she's like very, very strongly in Scientology. Just towards the end of when we were almost getting out, um, I was sitting having a coffee with my sister, and I said something, and she looked shocked at me. She said, "That's an enemy line." I made some comment, like you said, just some fact about something. To this day, I have no idea what it was I said that she considered an enemy line. I have no idea. It's like, because like you say, if you say a fact, even if it's a fact, you cannot say anything negative about Scientology. It's considered an enemy line or an enemy influence,
Yeah.
and it'll be jumped on. And
Yes.
my sister was just radar for that stuff. I mean, she looked over at some guy I said hi to, and she said, "Oh, he's ethics bait." I was like,
Yeah, and it's so funny that there's 2 words that come to mind as you're telling me about this that just, to me, are just bizarre in retrospect. Number 1, in Scientology, critical is
"Yeah,
negative. In the
right,
real world, it's positive because, of
yes,
course, you should be able to critically think about things, look at things, learn all about them, learn all the different perspectives, and use your logic, rationale, etc., all of the, human intelligence to work through things. But no, in Scientology, critical thoughts or criticism is completely negative and squashed. And
yeah,
the other one that's kind of a complete flipperoo is in Scientology, if you're reasonable, that's a bad thing. But yet being
Right.
reasonable out here in the real world is there's nothing wrong with that, right?
Right. Right. Exactly.
Because you'll
Um,
hear it's reasonable to listen to other points of view. It's reasonable to reflect on, well, what makes sense to you? What's right for you? What's the right path for you? And again, that's another one that's just they're almost like complete opposites in meanings.
yeah, and they're taken somewhat really literally sometimes. I mean, I had a conversation with my nephew once. He's a strongly in Scientologist as well. And it was about the whole idea of being critical. And I said to him, I said, well, what if you're teaching music and that note keeps getting played flat? Can you not criticize it? Just make like say, hey, that note is flat. You could bring that up a little bit. No, you can't. He said, no, you can't criticize. You can't be critical. I'm saying, well, yeah, but then how do you correct people if they're
Right.
if you're teaching somebody and they're, it's just to that degree. Um, it's how literal Scientology can sometimes take those things.
Yes, completely. All right. So, in terms of facts, we have here in Scientology, doubt is redefined as a condition, quote unquote, requiring confession and punishment. Questioning Hubbard policies or leadership means they've been influenced by suppressive persons. Doubt is a hallmark of critical thinking and independence. Change, whether scientific, social, or personal, begins with questioning. Suppressing doubt stunts growth. It doesn't foster strength, it enforces obedience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's where Hubbard's twisted it all around.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. Completely. And yeah,
and,
unfortunately, yeah, go
and it
ahead.
gets back to the whole control thing too,
Hmm.
because if you know that you're going to have doubts about something or in Scientology, you push that away because there's the punishment aspect of it and the fact that you'd be looked down upon for having doubt. So
Yep.
there is a control mechanism in there as well.
Yes, completely. Moving on, the next myth we have for today: critics of Scientology are criminals, haters, or bitter failures. Yeah, for sure. The amount of times that we've heard from people who reach out to the foundation, like, wow, this is not what I expected. And you
Yeah.
guys are so nice and you're amazing. And this has been so helpful and so supportive. And oh my goodness, like floods of relief to find out that this myth is complete fallacy.
Yeah, and I've seen that too. Even the short time I've been with the foundation, somebody going, I almost didn't. I was worried about it. And now I talk to you guys and all the help you've given, and wow, I couldn't have done it without you. And it's like, it's like a surprise to some of these people because if they've been in Scientology for decades and it's been run on them that if someone's criticizing Scientology, they have crimes, and that's really the line that gets programmed in your head,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. I know it's crazy the amount of times we've gotten emails like um switching to, our Mark and I talking on YouTube, like sharing our stories. People who are under the radar or former Scientologists just getting out can so relate. And very often, what we're talking about mirrors their own experiences. So I can't even count the number of emails I've received where people are just like, I'm so grateful. And
Yeah,
this really helped me to process my own experiences, which, to me, that is the best reward.
yeah,
Seeing somebody get out and reach out to the foundation and being able to help them and join the support group when they're ready, and all these
yeah,
things are just so, so meaningful and important.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And as far as being bitter failures, you look at so many people that have gotten out. Sometimes it takes a while. I mean, for Willie and I, we kind of struggled for the first few years or so, until we kind of got our feet under us, and now we're doing great. I mean, uh, better than we ever have in our
Hmm.
entire lives.
Yep.
Um, Even though there were times in Scientology when we were making pretty good money during that time, there was always that big vacuum cleaner called Scientology that if you're saving money, out it goes. And the number of times that happened where because I was always a saver, I was always kind of go, okay, I need to invest some money and save money. Every time I did that in Scientology, and somehow they would find out, I don't know how like it would just, whatever, they would just find out. And then it would be like relentless to get that money. And so, but now I don't have Scientology in my back, and we work and we do our thing, and we're just comfortable. We're doing really well. No
That's
debt. We
amazing.
got, we're certainly not being bitter, and we got lots of friends. So, and I've seen that numerous times, people doing really well. And, there are people who struggle, and sometimes even from the mental aspects that are kind of laid in so heavily in Scientology. But that's the nice thing about having the support group with Rachel,
Yes.
because people can address that, down the road if they need to kind of get a little bit more handle on how to kind of recover from that part of it. So
Yes, completely. I know. And another amazing thing is that after each meeting, Rachel puts together resources, writing
yeah,
prompts, all these, like a whole list of kind of not homework, but options that, based on what was discussed in the group, these are things you might find helpful. Try writing about this, journaling about this, try doing this, try doing this. And it's all optional, of course. It's not
yeah,
like, but that way it can kind of further the therapeutic value of the group with additional
right,
resources.
yeah, and relevant, because it's
Yes.
stuff that came up in the support group that she's addressing. So it's
Yes.
all relevant information and
Yes.
helpful.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so in terms of facts, we have here Hubbard's policy was to always attack, never defend. Members are conditioned to see critics as evil or dishonest, prevents them from listening to outside perspectives. Yes, completely. Many critics are former top level insiders. They know the system inside out, and they speak not from hatred, but from compassion and responsibility. It is not hatred to warn people about abuse, it is
Right.
care for others.
Yeah, definitely, 100%.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Let's see here. Moving on. Our next one, myth. Scientology's practices are based on scientific fact.
It's interesting when like I have a brother and a sister that are very strongly in Scientology, and my brother's viewpoint is that I am attacking his beliefs, and that's his line of protection,
Yes.
whatever in the programming. But the thing is that Hubbard said all along this is a scientifically proven methodology and system, um, that can be proven. It's not a belief system. So, but so many times, if you kind of push a little bit on it, or not, well, not push on it, but just criticize, make an honest criticism of something,
Yes.
they will say you're not only making a criticism, they'll say you're attacking my beliefs.
Yeah, yeah,
And
and even if you're not making a criticism, my stepdad said that exact same thing to me. And you know what it was in response to? I was at my grandmother had passed away. I went to her funeral. We were at a massive family dinner with my mom and my stepdad. They did not say one word to me, which was super awkward. Um, but my cousins and other family members who were never in Scientology were kind of protecting me, and they knew exactly what was going on. But when my mom and my stepdad got up to leave, I went over to them and I gave my mom a hug and I said, "I love you, Mom." And in my ear, she said, "I hope to see you again very soon," which I was a declared suppressive person. Then I go to my stepdad and I went to give him a hug and he said, "I don't feel inclined to give you a hug." And I said, "Well, I don't really care." And I gave him a hug anyway. And he was like, and then he blew up and he was like, "You're attacking my religious beliefs." Like
Yeah.
that's what was
That
happening.
that's the line that they use to make it seem like they're a normal religion,
Right, and
and that
that's what they're putting in front of them.
right,
Like,
right,
there nothing I was doing was bitter or
yeah,
it was
yeah,
actually completely just out of love and acceptance, like, "Okay, you won't talk to me, but I can still give you a hug," right?
yeah, yeah. And then as far as practices and scientific fact, again, we'll go back to Dianetics. In Dianetics, he said I think it was 270 clears he made or something like that.
Mhm.
Um, where they were, and would he not have known that they didn't have perfect memory, perfect eyesight, and perfect? I mean, if he made that many clears, where did they all go for one? But
Yep,
where was the proof? And there was no fact involved in, and any proof in that.
and
Uh,
nor was there any science in
no,
that being put together.
right,
I
right.
mean,
It was
he
just all
dropped
made up.
L. Ron Hubbard dropped out of university.
Yeah,
Uh, that's not, again, and
yeah,
we could do a whole other thing on the facts versus myths of L. Ron Hubbard. But yeah, there
yeah,
was no science involved in the concoction of Dianetics.
yeah. And then as far as if you have a scientific fact, it has to be something that's provable. Like
Yes.
there was somebody that when we were in Florida that was having some, I think it was drinking problems, and we took them to a Narcanon. So I was kind of all connected. I was going in there, checking, da 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 da, the whole bit, and it was terrible. It was just like the way it was run. For starters, the people who were running it were previous graduates, and you could almost tell there was probably still a few drugs floating around in there.
I've
But the
heard
thing
that.
is,
Yep. I've
there
absolutely heard that.
but there was no follow up. Like
Yep.
they promote that they have a 70% success rate.
Mhm.
So when I was talking to them, I said, "Well, how far out do you follow up? Do you follow out a year, 6 months, or how far do you follow out to make sure that people are staying?" Oh, we don't. Once they're out the door, they consider them a graduate, and they don't care after that. Once they get the money, and the sooner they can get them out the door, the better.
Yes.
And if they're not kind of doing the program properly, they'll kick them out the door, and
Yep.
they'll say, "Okay, he's out the door and he's not doing drugs." The second he walk out the door, so yeah, check. There's another success. But there's no proof. There's no scientific follow up. So they can't even really say there's scientific facts of any of it.
No.
Um,
No, and even two other examples that come to mind. Number one, probably the most egregious, or one of the more egregious scenarios, is the purification rundown, where
yeah,
again, it hasn't been studied by any doctors. It's not FAA approved. None of that.
right.
It's just
Yeah.
literally like, and including
Well,
practices of taking huge amounts of niacin, and at those doses, arguably, niacin
Well,
can
that has been
be
scientifically
dangerous.
studied.
Right.
That aspect of the purification rundown has been studied by
Exactly.
scientists in the proper scientific and medical, methodology.
Exactly.
So, as far as any of it goes, that one aspect has been shown scientifically to be proven to be harmful.
Yes.
So, and the only scientific proof that Scientology has is they have their e-meter, and if the needle's floating, that means that you've been a success in whatever you're doing at the time in Scientology. That's their scientific proof. The
Right.
needle's floating, therefore it's a success. And that's and floating needle means it's just kind of idly going across the dial. There's no motion, like really no jerking motion, whatever. But
Yep.
that's their proof. That's their scientific proof.
And yet there's a plaque on every e-meter that states that the device is not medically or scientifically proven to have
Yeah.
any health benefits.
Yeah, they were forced to do that. I think with the
Yes.
FDA back in the 60s.
Yep.
And but nobody reads it. Nobody say, "Oh, well, it's just," because the medical profession, according to Scientology, is a bunch of hogwash.
Yep.
That's
Oh, and yeah, I said FAA. I meant FDA, of course.
FDA. Yeah.
FAA is aviation related, not what we're talking about
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
sometimes Sometimes they're flying high.
I have way too many acronyms stuck in my head from Scientology, so
Yeah,
taking a misstep
Scientology.
every once in a while, at least I realized when you said that just now.
Yeah, Scientology is so full of acronyms. It's
I know.
incredible.
I
Yeah,
know, crazy. And in terms of the facts here, we have, despite the word Scientology, it has no grounding in science. E-meters are galvanometers measuring skin response like a crude lie detector. There's no evidence for engrams, thetans, or the elaborate cosmology. Hubbard was a science fiction writer. His claims often contradict known science. The label of science is used as a mask of legitimacy, not reality.
right. His claims also often contradict his own claims.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
So often through Scientology, there are contradictions of what he
Yes.
says. So, I
Yes.
mean, there's no stability of no stable uh, facts in Scientology because
Yeah.
he's often contradicting his own facts
Yeah.
or
And one of the
statements, rather.
simplest and most blatant ones to me is Hubbard's statement, quote, communication is universal solvent, unquote. And
Yeah,
yet they practice disconnection.
right, right. I'm glad you said practice. I've gotten away from using the word policy of disconnection
Hmm.
because they'll say, "Oh, we don't have that policy,"
Right.
but they do have a practice of it.
They absolutely do.
Even if they, so I always say the practice, they do practice disconnection, even whether they have a policy or not. It doesn't matter. They
That's right.
practice disconnection.
Just as they practice fair game to this
Right.
day. Yep,
Exactly.
completely. Same
Yeah.
same thing. Because as we've talked about many times, the rigid adherence to L. Ron Hubbard policy and writings make them incapable of change.
Right.
Yeah. All right, moving along here. Let's see. We'll do one or two more of these, and then I think we'll do a second part if you're good with that, Phil.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I like
Okay.
doing this stuff. I
Okay.
can, because there's so much to it. I mean,
There
like I
is.
said,
I know.
Scientology is a huge hit and myth.
Yes, hit and myth. I like that. That's a good one. Yeah, and also it's in the context of what we see helping people get out of Scientology through the work of the foundation. I think it's very relevant to talk about this. And for anyone considering reaching out, please do.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
for sure. All right, next one we have myth. If you're struggling, it's your fault. You must have pulled it in.
Yeah. Where that comes from is Hubbard wrote this thing called the overt motivator sequence. An overt is a harmful act. A motivator is something that happens to you that kind of justifies your harmful act. So if you're having something bad happen to you, it's sort of like almost like a karma thing in Scientology. They'll deny, oh, it has nothing to do with karma. It's not really karma because that's sort of like a fiction thing, but over motivator sequence, that's a real thing.
Right.
But it's so really that if something bad is happening to you, even if you get sick, or whatever, you get in a car accident or something, um, even if another car slams into your car while you're parked on the side of a street, they would consider that you have some harmful act or crime that made it your fault that you got hit. And
Right.
that's the literal way that they apply that thing. So what they would do is they would say, okay, well, you pulled that in because you must have crimes or harmful acts. You either need to sit down and write them all down for a day or two or whatever, or we need to put you on an e-meter and ask you penetrating questions to find out what your crimes are.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
that can go on for a long time, depending on what you pulled in.
Yep.
Um,
Exactly. But this is how, in my opinion, this is 100% how Scientology victim shames its
yes.
members.
Yeah.
Because this
Right.
is true even if, another Scientologist perpetrates a crime against you,
Yeah.
you're still to blame because like, in other words, not only just an accident, but also anything negative that happens to you, it's your fault.
Right. And that was very obvious and evident during the whole Danny Masterson trial for
Yep.
the victims of Danny Masterson. Scientology protected Danny Masterson, punished the victims, and
Yes.
and supported Danny Masterson against the victims, and fair game the victims. And fair game in Scientology means basically to harass, do whatever to basically try to destroy them.
Yep. And
And
silence them utterly, quote unquote.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
but that was that was the
Yeah,
primary Scientology's involvement in that trial was the reason that I was asked to testify as an expert witness, covering in detail the policies and mechanisms that Scientology uses to protect criminals within its ranks.
right. And that is, and this statement of if you're struggling, it's your fault, you must have pulled it in.
Mhm.
That is the reasoning behind why Scientology attacks the victims,
Yep.
shames the victims, tries to destroy the victims, because they are considered to be criminals, or worse, or whatever.
Yeah.
That then, and why they pulled it in, why, it is victim shaming, and it's a horrible, and to the degree that you've never seen anywhere else.
I know.
I mean, Scientology takes the whole victim shaming thing to the nth degree, and
Completely.
it's a horrible, horrible part of Scientology that they do that, because it builds shame in people and builds guilt in people, and even to lesser degrees than what happened with Danny Masters and stuff, that whole conditioning for year after year, thinking that anything that happens bad to you at all is your fault.
Right.
that
Yeah,
that,
because
that
any other logic or questioning would mean that, oh, well, wait, you're not a successful, flourishing, prospering
right,
Scientologist, and what? Wait, maybe Scientology doesn't work, you know?
right, right. So that this way, exactly, so this way they can say, well, yeah, it works, but obviously you have crimes,
Yes.
otherwise it would work, because if you didn't have crimes, it would work perfectly.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, and then in terms of what we have on the fact side of this teaching tells members that illness, accidents, or abuse are caused by their own hidden sins or past misdeeds, shifts blame onto the victim, often away from the abuser, which we covered. Members internalize shame and guilt, one of the hardest lies to undo, that they weren't to blame for being harmed. Reality, bad things happen to good people, and responsibility lies with perpetrators, not victims.
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yep,
And that is
completely.
one of the more horrible myths in Scientology. Really, it
Yes.
is
Yeah,
one of the
it
more
is. It's
insidious things.
yeah, very, very destructive. It makes it
Yeah.
very it breeds a culture of victim shaming where it's
Yeah.
unsafe to report what's happened to you because then you'll be blamed. And it's
Right.
very, very insidious.
Right. And it programs people to feel that guilt and shame uh, for anything that happens to them, to one degree or another.
Yep. Exactly. Wow, we covered a lot today, huh?
It was, yeah, interesting stuff. It was yeah, it sort of brings up a lot of interesting things back in it. I'm looking forward, if we do another one of these. There's so
Yes.
much more in Scientology, so many more myths and Scientology, things that they promote as being scientific facts, but not.
Yep. Hit or myth, like you established for today. Awesome. Well, thank you, Phil, for joining me today. Thank you to everybody joining us on this stream. Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit like. We are for every milestone 1,000 subscribers that we reach, we'll do a book giveaway and other fun things. So please share if you find this content interesting. Also, special shout out to the let's see, I think was it Todd Johnson? Thank you for the memberships you gifted last week. We've set up memberships just as an easy, fun way to support the work that we do. We cannot do the work that we do without the support of the many volunteers, donors, and friends of the Michael J. Rinder Aftermath Foundation.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and there's a lot to do. There's a lot of people that the Aftermath Foundation is helping, and there's there's still supposedly 20,000 people still in there, so there's going to be a lot of work coming up.
Yes, exactly. And of course, we focus on Sea Org members, but frankly, there's many people who, it's not just Sea Org members.
Right.
So we've helped, many different people, staff, public Scientologists, civilian Scientologists, second generation Scientologists, you name it, who are wanted to walk away and needed help doing so. So it's very, very meaningful work. I'm grateful for all that you do, Phil.
Oh, thanks, Claire. I can't do it without you, because I lean on you for all the stuff that I don't know. So
it's all good. We make a good team. So awesome. Well, for that, we'll close out for this week. We'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks, Claire.
Bye-bye.
Please help us to get to 10,000 subscribers.
And don't forget to push the notification bell to be alerted when new content is available.
For more information about how you can apply for help
or to become a volunteer,
visit us at theaftermathfoundation.org.
Thank you for watching.